Hello again everyone, it's True Underground and I'm back with another video tutorial, and this time it's going to be for a sort of plucked lead sound that sort of sounds like something that the M Machine would make. So solo, the sound sounds like this. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is create a line mixer 6:2 inside of a combinator, and then next, right click and create a subtractor and make sure it's in the initialized patch. Next, turn the polyphony down to 1 and put the portamento at 0, so it only can play one note at a time. And then move the pitch bend range up to 14. Next, what you're going to do is just take the default waveform, this saw wave right here at octave 4, change it to this circle mode right here by clicking this button. It's the third one down, then putting the phase at 22. Next, what you're going to want to do is take the noise oscillator, turn this little light on, put the decay at 34, the noise color at 127, which is all the way up, and put the level at 18. Next, you're going to put this mix knob at around 12 just to add a little bit of this white noise oscillator in. Next, what you're going to do is go ahead and move on to the filter section. Make sure it's at low pass 24 so that it'll cut off all the high frequencies. Put the frequency at 20, the resonance at around 2, and then turn on this link button right here and turn on filter 2. Put the frequency all the way down and put the resonance all the way down. And what this will do is basically with this part right here, we're going to be using that to make the pluck sound of the synth. And whenever we link it to the second filter, it just increases the pluck sound of the synth. So next, we can go ahead and move on to the filter envelope, put the attack at 0, release at 0, decay at 48, and the sustain at 34. So it'll basically take this filter knob right here and pull it down really fast to achieve that plucking sound. The next thing that we're going to do is move on to the mod envelope section. Make sure oscillator 1 pitch is selected right here. Put the amount at 85 and put the decay at 4. And basically what this does is it's going to modulate just like we did up here, the pitch of the sound to achieve that plucking sound like this. And if I move that decay up, you'll see exactly what it's doing. Yeah, so just make sure to put that at 4. Another thing in the filter envelope, make sure to turn the amount up to 123 or you won't actually get any sound out from this filter when it comes to this filter envelope. Next, move on to the first LFO, put the rate at 1/8. Make sure it's synced on this triangle waveform right here, the one that looks like a little mountain. Then put the amount at 6, so it's modulating the pitch up slightly whenever you hit one of the notes. All right, so far the completed synth should sound something like this. Alright, so now let's go ahead and move on to the processing of the actual sound because this is where the real sound starts to take shape. What we're going to do first is add an EQ, turn on low cut, put the frequency at 101 Hertz, bring the gain almost all the way down, and leave the Q at where it is so it just cuts out all these low frequencies. The next thing what we're going to do is we're going to add a soft tube saturation knob, leave it at the neutral setting, put the saturation at 4.1. If you don't have this rack extension, I would definitely recommend it, but if you don't have it, you can take a Scream 4 and put it on the tape saturation mode and get basically the same effect. Next, we're going to add another saturation knob with a little bit more saturation at 0.7 and leave it again at the neutral setting. So far the synth should sound something like this. Alright, so next we're going to add on a vocoder, and this is actually going to help sculpt the sound quite a bit. Without it, it sort of sounds weak and not quite as powerful and focused, but this will help add a little bit of crispiness. So go ahead and right click, add a vocoder, leave it on 16 band, make sure to turn to equalizer mode or you won't actually hear any of the sound because it'll be trying to use it as a vocoder. Bring the shift knob up to 16 so it'll add a little bit of crispiness to the sound, and then try to go ahead and sort of mirror this EQ band as well as possible because it won't give me the actual values of all these individual bands. So what I have going on here is a slight scoop in the low mids, and then it boosts up when it gets to the highs, and the extreme highs I just left as they are. And with the vocoder on, the synth should sound something like this. Here's actually what it sounds like without that vocoder. So there's actually a considerable difference on the overall sound. Next, we're going to go ahead and keep sculpting the sound with some EQ. So right click, add an EQ. First, turn on low cut, bring the frequency all the way up to 600 Hertz, the gain up to 4.6, and then leave the Q at where it is so we have this nice low boost that's going on right here. Next, we're going to be providing a nice mid scoop right here. Put the frequency at 370, the gain at -10, and the Q at 2.3. Turn on the next parameter, put the frequency at 1100 Hertz, bring the gain down to -5.7, and bring the Q all the way up to 23.7. That'll provide this small minuscule scoop that's right around here. So without EQ, the synth sound just sounds something like this. And without it, it sounds considerably more muddy, and this helps focus the sound. Next, what we're going to do is add another low cut. I don't quite know why I boosted it and then cut it, but it just sounded good, I guess. So put the frequency at 111 Hertz, bring the gain all the way down, leave the Q where it's at. Next, we're going to go ahead and add a compressor to help sound sort of punch a little bit more. Bring the input gain up to 3.8 decibels, the threshold down to 25.2, then leave the ratio at 2:1. Next, bring the attack up to 71 milliseconds and leave the release its default setting of 327. So with the compressor, it sounds like this. Without it, it sounds like this. That actually sort of helps the pluckiness of that synth sound. I would definitely recommend compression when trying to getting these sort of sounds. One thing you can do is increase this input gain, and then it'll be easier to hear exactly what the compressor is doing, so you can tweak the settings to your liking. Next, we're going to go ahead and add a maximizer to add some soft clipping and then just to bring up the overall volume of the sound. So do that by creating a maximizer, bring the input gain up to 3.6, turn on 4 millisecond look ahead so it's not clipping, make sure to turn on the limiter. We're going to have a fast attack with a slow release. And you can play around with these settings because it's dependent on every single synth sound you make, but that's just what I chose for this sound. Next, put the soft clip, which is basically like some very subtle distortion when you bring up the input gain, bring it on, and then put the amount at 40. So far the synth should sound something like this. Alright, so next we're going to go ahead and add another EQ, turn it on, and then put it the high shelf at 6000 Hertz, which is the default setting. Bring the gain up to 2.9 and bring the Q all the way down to 0.50. This will add a subtle boost in the high frequencies to add a little bit of crispiness to the sound. So far, it should sound like this. Without that EQ, it sounds like this. So again, it just helps add some high frequencies. So the final things that we're going to be doing is adding a echo or delay unit, a little bit of gated reverb, and then again, sort of an arena reverb to add out some space to the sound. So first, with the echo, what you need to do is turn it on, put the time at 3/16, and then have the right channel offset at 1/64. What this right channel offset will do is it'll offset the right channel by 1/64 of a note, so it'll basically add a little bit of stereo width to the sound. With the feedback of 42, change it to tube mode, so we have tube distortion on the delay, put the drive amount to 32, and finally put the dry wet balance to 30. And feel free to tweak these settings to your taste, it's just what I chose for that sound. So far the sound with the delay should sound like this. And without the right channel offset, it'll actually sound like this. So it's a good way to add a little bit of stereo width to high end or just to a synth. The next thing that I did in the signal chain was add a filter, but you don't really need that to do the sound. That was just for some automation that I did later on in the song that I showed you in the introduction. The next thing you're going to want to do is right click and create an RV7 digital reverb. Make sure to turn it on and make sure to change it to the gate mode, which is the algorithm number 6 on this reverb. Leave the size as default setting of 2. Bring the decay all the way down to -64, the dampening to 44, and the dry wet to 26. Now this reverb isn't actually like a normal reverb. Let me go ahead and show you how it sounds. It sounds quite different than just sort of an arena reverb. It almost sounds like it has this sort of reversed sound into it. But when you add another reverb, which we're going to do now, it ends up sounding a lot better. It just sort of increases the pluckiness of that synth and then makes it sort of sound like it's taking place in sort of a big hall or a big arena. So next, create an RV7000 advanced reverb, leave it on the default all-warm plate setting, change the algorithm to arena, put the size at 20.3, the diffusion at 127, and then make sure to take the right delay, bring it down to 10 milliseconds, and the left delay and bring it down to 10 milliseconds, because if you don't, you'll have the right and left channels offsetting and it'll sort of sound weird. Next, make sure your stereo level is at 4.5 decibels. The mono delay, or the delay that's going to go on right in the middle, make sure that's at 30 milliseconds, and that the mono level is at 1.1 decibels. So the completed synth sound should sound something like this. And actually what we started out with was a very simple synth sound that sounded like this, but with tons of effects processing, it makes the sound sound a lot bigger and more professional. Alright guys, so that's all I have for today. If you liked the tutorial, don't forget to subscribe and like the video. And also make sure to check out my Facebook and Twitter accounts. Links will be below in the description. Alright guys, until next time, Tour of Underground, out.